Good afternoon to all our friends and fans. This is Michael Virardi, welcoming you to our 146th live streaming episode. And I'm so happy today to find myself at Menelaos Kyprianou law office here in Limassol, Cyprus, with the managing partner, Menelaos Kyprianou. Menelaos, welcome to the Ask Virardi show.
Very nice to see you, Michael, as always.
It is a pleasure and an honor having you here. Menelaos, as I said before, is the managing partner, and with the rest of the team, they have managed to become one of the largest law firms in Cyprus, with offices not only in Nicosia, Limassol, and Paphos, but also with an international presence in Greece, Malta, Ukraine, and Dubai. We will be talking today with Menelaos on how it is to lead a local and a global team, consisting of 4 partners and 42 lawyers, and then spanning out to how many people approximately altogether at the law office?
Around 80 today.
Around 80, excellent, in all countries.
Yes.
We will also focus on how they successfully serve their ever-increasing international clientele, its membership in Multilaw, which I had a chance to lecture for, to give a seminar.
You had a chance to impress.
Thank you very much. I'll pay you later. As well as Menelaos' future personal and professional plans. So with this in mind, I welcome you once again. Thank you for having us here at your beautiful offices, law offices. Who was the founding father of this law firm, Menelaos?
Well, the firm was founded by my father, Michael Kyprianou, in 1991. Until that time, my father worked at the Attorney General's office. He was a state prosecutor. In 1991, he managed to get elected in Parliament, and because of the separation issues, he had to resign from his government position, and he founded this law firm. Around 3 years later, in 1994, I came from my studies and joined the firm. We were then a firm with 4 lawyers and doing predominantly criminal work, because my father was a criminal lawyer and is. When I came, I tried to expand the fields of law that we dealt in, and also the locations. So we began in Nicosia, I forgot to mention, and then in around 2000, year 2000, we set up this office in Limassol. Then the office in Paphos followed, and then we started our international expansion with the offices that you mentioned. And I think a turning point in the development of the firm was in 2007, when three of our lawyers became equity partners. And I think that helped us very much in 2 ways. First of all, we showed to the existing lawyers of our firm that this is a firm working on the principles of merit, that it is not a family firm, and this motivated them, and I think keeps motivating our lawyers to produce their best self. And also it gave a message to lawyers outside, people who finish their studies, that this is probably a good place for them to work, because it does have a pathway for their future success. So I think these factors helped our firm very much through the years.
Excellent. I met with your equity partners, if I'm not mistaken, last time I was here.
That's
they are
right.
the exact same equity partners that they were in 2007?
That's correct, yes. They're
Yes.
the same partners. But with our foreign offices, we have now partners who are further partners from the countries where we have the firms.
Okay, a personal question, even though I can guess the answer, but maybe I'm wrong. What drew you into becoming a lawyer? What prompted you into becoming a lawyer?
Well,
was there anything else you wanted to do? Any other hobbies?
I can tell you what attracted my interest, maybe from the first day that I started studying law. I think there are 2 or 3 characteristics in a lawyer which I find very interesting. The first is that behind every law and every rule and every regulation and every court judgment, there is a logic, there is a reasoning behind everything. And I would actually say that studying law and practicing law is a constant exercise in logic. And if somebody who wants to study law asks me about what to expect and what he should do, I will always tell him, whenever you hear something in a lecture or whenever you read something, try to understand what is the reason behind this rule and this law. And the second, I think, interesting part in the law is that you have an interaction with a third person, the judge, and it takes a lot of thought as to how to present your case in order to persuade another individual, another human being who has his own way of thinking, his own beliefs, his own background, how you can persuade him to see the things from the side that you want.
Okay, if on a sideline, I was talking to a guy from a technology company when setting up, and he asked me who's on today's show, and I said Menelaos Kyprianou, and he said, I lost a trial to Menelaos, and he's a damn good lawyer. So I'm just telling you exactly what he told me on the phone.
I will also pay you later.
Yeah, you'll also pay me later. I was looking at your resume, that's why I didn't mention it, but what's your field of specialization? For someone listening in now, what is your field of specialization, Menelaos? Because you cannot be an expert in all things.
Of course.
Yes.
Well, when I started my career, I did a lot of varied work. For example, I did white-collar crime, defending a bank employee from embezzlement. One case that may be interesting to your friends and fans is I represented Georgiakovou at a time when he was a candidate for the presidential elections. And I think this is quite an interesting case. In his brochures for his election campaign, he produced one particular brochure with a number of photographs, and in one photograph was a young lady working at her desk, and that lady later sued him. And she said, you presented this photograph, you published this photograph without my permission, and this is an infringement of my privacy. And there was a lot of politics in this because it was a few days before the elections, and at least I believe that someone had encouraged her to file this case. And we had a very interesting case, and the judge then was Mr. Kostas Kliridis, who is today the Attorney General. He was then a judge. And he explained very well the limits between private life and public life, and where your protection ends. And basically he found in our favor. And he stated the reasoning was that because the photo was taken with the lady's consent, then any further publication is permissible even without her consent.
Okay, very interesting, very interesting. In 2015, in the 2015 edition of the European Legal 500 Directory, they described you as an outstanding lawyer. Does that make you complacent, or does it motivate you and force you to raise the bar even higher, Menelaos?
Yes, this directory that you mentioned, the European Legal 500, how it works is that this is a London-based company, and it researches the market. So it talks with colleagues, and it also talks with clients of yours. So this, of course, makes me feel very nice to understand that a colleague or a client has said something nice about me. But the reality is that I don't really believe in such superlative terms in our profession and in most professions. I think what matters most is to be consistent. I think that in a given case or in a given project, most people can be excellent, but what matters is to be excellent on a consistent basis and reliable on a consistent basis. And this is what I try for myself and for my my team here.
Totally correct. Consistency is key, as I've written here, and I agree with you 100%. Now, does having a presence in 5 countries makes management harder, and how do you maintain consistency and quality of service across borders?
Well, I think many people ask this about how do you control your foreign offices, and I think the first point is for someone who wants to expand in this way is to understand and to acknowledge and accept that he cannot actually control 100% what will be happening, and he should not try to micromanage the people he will have at the foreign office. And a very interesting book I read recently, which I would like to speak about, is by Edward Weseman, who unfortunately died a few months ago. But he had a very huge...
Let me show it to our fans and friends. It's the first great myth. The first great myth.
Yes, the title is The First Great Myth of Legal Management is that it exists. So he is basically saying you cannot have law management. He says that lawyers are very individualistic and that don't try to micromanage them. So I don't agree 100% with everything he says, but he has some good points. But I do think that the number one point is you have to accept you will not control everything.
Okay.
The number 2 point is to choose the people who will be working with you. And here I think it's not just looking at the cold, hard facts or the CV, but, and I'm sure, Michael, you must have heard this a lot, you have to listen to your instinct. And when I read biographies and articles, I see that many people say this.
And you're an avid reader, if I remember well from our last meeting.
I try to read.
Yes, very good.
So I hear a lot of people saying that in a given situation, I listened to my instinct or to my gut feeling. And this is my experience also, and I agree 100% with this. And it's very important when choosing the people you will work with.
Totally correct.
So I said number 1, don't expect to control. Number 2, choose your people. And number 3, instill the culture that you have here in the offices abroad. And here we try hard to have a culture, the way we do things. We have even created a manual which we give to all our lawyers. And of course, I will not go into many details, but the main point, as you would expect, is that we want integrity, we want honesty, we want us to try to do our best in every single case.
These are your values.
These are the values we try to instill in our work. And these values we try to instill also in the offices abroad. And finally, we try to create synergies. So if there is an office in Greece and an office in Malta, what can they do together? So synergy and an overriding ultimate goal where we all try to move towards.
Excellent. So my next question has to do with Multilaw. Can you please explain to our fans and friends what Multilaw is all about? And since you had the synergies here, why enter into an organization like Multilaw? Can you explain it to us, please, what Multilaw is?
Sure.
And why enter into Multilaw?
Yeah, well, Multilaw, Michael, is a network of international law firms. Usually each country will have one law firm as a member of this network, although the larger countries like the United States have more.
So in Cyprus you represent Multilaw?
We are the Cyprus member of Multilaw, yes. There is, as you would expect, a screening process, a selection process. I think the main benefits of being in this organization are 2. The first is when you want to refer work so you have a client who has a problem in Italy, for example, then you have an already existing network and a law firm which you have met, and it's safer for you to refer your client to him, and vice versa, you receive referrals.
Yes.
And the second is that there are annual meetings, 2 or 3. With the one you attended, and you made, as always, an excellent presentation.
And I met your Italian counterparts, by the way, and they impressed me. And if I'm not mistaken, one of your Italian counterparts speaks German. Giovanni, if I remember his name well. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I remember from that event.
Yeah, well, they remember you also, and I can tell you it's not very easy to impress a big group of lawyers.
Yeah. I'm happy that all went well. I'm happy that all went well.
I went once to a conference in New York, and Kofi Annan was then the Secretary General of the UN. And the first thing he said is, I have to say, I speak with so many leaders and I've been to so many events, but I feel a little shaky that I'm in a room full of lawyers.
Okay, excellent.
So yes, Multilaw, as I said, the first part is the referrals. The second is the events where you meet people, you share knowledge, you share information.
Very good. Mm-hmm. Dear friends and fans, I just wanted to say that Menelaos has been very, very kind to offer as a gift to one lucky winner €1,000 prize to be given to the charity of your choice, to the winner's choice. So he has been very, very generous. We thank you and your law office. So if you share this episode, or if you mention someone worth watching this episode, either now live or later on recorded, one lucky winner will choose to give €1,000 courtesy of Menelaos and the lucky winner to the lucky charity. So thank you very much. You've been very generous. Let me go to a few personal questions. I want to know a bit more about you. You're a very cultivated person. That doesn't come from any CV. It comes from my own observations. And tell us about who was your first ever mentor, or any mentor you had, and how has he or she positively influenced you?
Unfortunately, I can't think of one specific person. A lot of people have, I think, influenced me, and primarily I would say various writers like C.S. Lewis, Wayne Dyer, which I'm sure
of course
you know, Stephen Covey in the field of management, and I also have to say about your work, Michael, that it's I find it very, very helpful, very wise, a lot of truths, and also what differentiates it is that it is in a Cypriot context, which I think you're probably the only person who writes and who gives speeches in a Cypriot context. So these are the people who maybe a mentor is too big a word, but who I find helpful I find their writings and their teachings helpful.
Thank you very much for including my name in those names. Is there a book that has touched you in any way? Which one? How and why? How does that book touch you?
I think you know better than me that it's difficult for one book to influence. It's a lot of books that you read, but one book I can recommend, which I liked very much and I find very interesting. It is written by a lawyer, but it is not addressed to lawyers. It is called The Rule of Law by Bingham, who was the president of the Supreme Court of England.
What's the name, please? The Rule of Law by?
Bingham, Bingham. And he explains certain things that we possibly take for granted, which is how important it is for the law to be above any individual and to be ruled by law rather than by any individual. And he actually refers to Aristotle as the first person who taught this principle. So he explains these issues in his book, and then he explains what happened with 9/11, with terrorism, and how the rules and the laws that were passed, especially in the US by George Bush in order to counter terrorism, how these erode these principles of the rule of law, which of course he's not saying it's bad or it's good, but he's just explaining the two forces, the one that you need the rule of law to be always above everything, and then how you deal with emergency situations where you have to make discounts to the rule of law in order to be more effective.
It sounds very interesting. And you said it's not only for lawyers, correct?
No, it's not. It's addressed to the public. It is written by a lawyer, but it's not a technical law book which we take to the court.
Your next answer, if you're consistent with what you have set up to now, you'll tell me that you don't have the biggest lessons, but you have many lessons in life. So what is the biggest lesson you learned in your life, and how has that served you well?
Yeah, you're right that you probably already guessed the answer, that it's a lot in order to survive, let alone in order to succeed, let alone to survive in this world. There's a lot of habits and principles that you have to have. I think what I found very important is the way you deal with other people. You have to try to see things from their perspective, try to understand their background, their history, their beliefs, and to treat them with respect and try to find solutions which will benefit both.
Excellent. A final message from Menelaos Kyprianou to all the Michael Virardi fans and friends. Bear in mind that most of them are millennials, and which are younger in age, but that message should apply to everyone. A final message from Menelaos to all our fans and friends.
Well, first of all, I'm happy that I'm also now a fan and a friend of Michael. And seriously, I believe that the work that is being done is very important. I believe that the wealth in a country is created not by government, but by the private sector, by the private companies, the wealth and the jobs. And people like Michael, who can help these companies to increase their productivity, to increase their effectiveness. This leads to an overall positive effect for the country as a whole.
Thank you very much. Let me recap what we have said. Everything started in 1991 here. This law office started in 1991 with Mr. Michalakis Kyprianou. In 1994, Menelaos joined, and he expanded the fields of law as well as the locations. In 2007, a great message was handed out that principles of merit apply, so we had equity partners joining. Then Menelaos termed law as a constant exercise in logic, which I loved and I'm going to adopt. He was voted, or he was perceived as an outstanding lawyer by the European Legal 500, and that's the perception of his fellow lawyers, which have been asked all around the globe. But Menelaos says you need to have consistency. It's not about one title or one instance in time. He also said that very important when managing teams is you cannot have control 100% of the times, and you cannot micromanage. Choose your people wisely, because at the end of the day, who you hire is who you are. Instill the culture in your offices. They have a manual here with all their values that they instill it all around the globe. And last but not least, note that synergies do apply in this law office, because as the great Michael Jordan once said, it takes a player to win a game, but it takes a team to win the championship. He talked about Multilaw, which is a network of international law firms, which Michael Kyprianou represents here in Cyprus. And he said that even Kofi Annan said that it's not easy to impress a lawyer. His mentors are many. Between them is Louis, Dyer, and Covey. He said that the book that has influenced him is The Rule of Law, and you don't have to be a lawyer to read that or to understand it. And last but not least, he said that the biggest lesson he learned is to see things from other people's perspective, to understand their backgrounds, their way of thinking, and also try to find win-win solutions. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure and an honor having you here.
May I congratulate you for saying in 5 minutes what I had to say in 30 minutes.
Thank you very much. It's an honor. Thank you, Menelaos.
Thank you very much.